Day 21 of the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial began with one of the jurors being sick and not present.
To select by lot the next juror. Out of the three, we need another juror. Any objection to the clerk randomly pulling out the number out of the box?
None from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
That juror was replaced with another juror who was randomly selected. Next, there was an interesting interaction between the judge and one of the defense lawyers about a tweet that the lawyer made.
Social media post by Mr. Griffin commenting upon witnesses' testimony and quality of the investigation by the state. It appeared on my Twitter feed this morning. Mr. Griffin, is this part of your defense strategy or?
Your Honor, all I did was retweet an article that was published in the Washington Post. I didn't put any comment. I didn't make any statement. I just retweeted an article that's in the newspaper. That's all I did.
Retweeting is the same as, to some, I'm not a Twitter friend of yours, but it just appeared on my, under Twitter. First thing up this morning was you. The rule does not specifically state that lawyers are prohibited from criticizing witnesses during the course of the trial or commenting on a case that they're actively participating in. I think it goes against the spirit of the law. The jurors were instructed not to discuss the case, and obviously that did not extend to the lawyers, but it's not a good practice. It could easily lead to modification of our rules that might specifically address something like that. So I'll leave it at that.
Stand, Your Honor, I will not retweet anything or tweet anything until this trial is over.
Yes, sir.
After that debacle, the jurors were led into the courtroom. Buster Murdaugh, Alex Murdaugh's son, was called to the stand by the defense.
Defense will call Richard Alexander Murdaugh, Jr., also known as Buster Murdaugh.
Raise your right. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Buster stated that it was common for his family to park in the grass on the side of his grandparents' home in Alameda. Then they talked about a call to Buster from his father Alex at around 9:10 p.m. after Maggie and Paul had been killed. This call took place during Alex's drive to Alameda from the Moselle property. Buster stated that the call was normal. In talking about his father, Buster said that it was not unusual for Alex to misplace his phone or not have it with him. The family dog Bubba was brought up next. Buster stated that Bubba was hard to control, but he would listen to Alex. This is the dog that was called for by who is believed to be Alex in the kennel video.
Buster, cat.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Bubba. Hey, Bubba.
It's a guinea.
This is a chicken. Come here, cat. Come here, Bubba. Cat. Quit.
Buster says that the weekend leading up to the murders was normal and that he was with Alex and others in his immediate family that weekend. In the small tree video, Buster identifies Alex as wearing a blue shirt and pants. Later, when meeting his father at Moselle after being notified of Maggie and Paul's death, he states that his father was wearing a t-shirt and shorts. Buster stated that in the weeks following the murders, he was with his father. He said that in his eyes his father acted appropriately and that he was never in fear of his father. Shortly after the murders, Buster testifies that he and Alex put out a $100,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the killer. Oddly, this reward had an expiration date in September, the same month as Alex's attempted suicide. Buster states that he is unsure of why the reward would have an expiration date. Next, the highly debated clip of Alex saying either "I did them so badly" or "they did them so badly" is played.
Do you recognize your dad's voice?
I do.
If you listen to it, would you be able to tell the jury whether it's I or they?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd like to pull up Exhibit 153, the clip.
Sitting on top of the days, it's tough.
It was so bad. So bad.
What'd your dad say?
said they did him so bad.
Was that the first time you'd heard him say they did him so bad?
No, sir.
When was the first time you heard him say they did him so bad?
First time I heard him say that was the night that I went down to Moselle, the night of June the 7th.
Did he say that more than one time?
He did.
During cross-examination by the prosecutors, nothing really important came up, so I won't waste your time on that. After lunch, the defense called Mike Sutton to the stand. He is considered an expert in shooting reconstruction and acoustics, which is basically how far away something can be heard.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Mike Sutton, S-U-T-T-O-N.
Mr. Sutton, what do you do for a living?
I'm a forensic engineer.
Sutton states that he has worked on around 50 cases. In a PowerPoint, he goes through the trajectories of the bullets fired.
Okay, now this is titled Shot Trajectories as Measured by Special Agent Worley. Are these what we're talking about, measurements she made?
Yes.
Pertaining to the shots fired at Maggie, Sutton utilized measurements taken by police of bullets impacting a quail pen and a doghouse.
So this is what I call the quail pen, and it's a small animal cage. It's been referred to, but like it's a bird cage, and it's up against the building or the barn or the hangar. I think it's been called several things. It's up underneath the roof.
Okay, now if you went perpendicular to that out, would you run into the dog kennels?
Yes.
Okay, so this is across from the dog kennels, and that is the quail pen.
Yes, and this particular photograph was taken the night of the murder. So the first few pictures just show the points of evidence that were of interest to me. What you have there on the side of the quail pen, so it would be the side that's really facing the crime scene. And there was a bullet hole basically in the center of it. So when I looked at that, it looked like the bullet was on an upward trajectory. A small one, but an upward trajectory. You commonly see that lead-in mark where the bullet goes into a piece of material.
From the trajectory of the bullet that struck the quail pen, Sutton states that it is very unlikely that 6'4" Alex Murdaugh fired that shot so long as he was in a standing position. However, he did state that the doghouse shot could have been fired by a person of Alex's height. In the birdshot that struck Paul, Sutton believes that it had a 14-degree upward trajectory and that it went through glass before striking a tree. This will come into question through cross-examination later.
These first pictures are from the night of the murders, and that's inside the feed room. On the south wall of the feed room, there's just a regular window.
And what's that?
Those are pellet holes from the buckshot. There are 9 pellets in buckshot, this particular load of buckshot. There's the window from the outside of the feed room. When I looked at the crime scene pictures, I noticed that one of the buckshot pellets hit a pine tree, and SLED took a picture of that damage to the bark of the pine tree. And so when I was there, there's like a stand of pine trees that have been planted behind the kennels.
Right.
And so what I did, there are 9 pellets, but the pellets had already spread out by the time they went through the window. In fact, there was one pellet still wedged in the windowsill itself.
That you found?
That I found. But there was a tree and it had some ivy on it, but it had damage. And so what I did was I located that damaged tree and put a mark on it. Just put some yellow tape there. I went back in the feed room. If you look at the pictures of the feed room, there are some bloody footprints from tennis shoes. And it's just as I believe it was Chief Deputy Kinsey talked about Paul being about midway in the room. That's the approximate location. So I stood there, but I knew Paul got shot in the chest. So I lowered my head about eye to chest level, and I looked through each hole until I saw the tape on the tree, which is where the sap was coming out, where the pellet had hit it. So I determined which hole in the window belonged to that pellet. And then what I did, instead of using a trajectory rod or laser, it was daytime, I did the old school method, which I stretched a neon pink string from the damage of the tree through the hole in the window out the door, because from what I have understood, this shot was taken within 3 feet or so because there was stippling on this wound here. So what I did was I basically took the string out as far as you needed to go, and which is what is in that picture there.
This would be that string?
Yes, that is simply a string. It's pulled tight from the sap coming out of the tree where the buckshot pellet hit it, through the hole in the window, and then back through the feed room to set up a tripod in the door. So that is the shot line, or the trajectory of the pellets in the shotgun.
Also being an expert in acoustics, Sutton testified that a person inside the main house roughly 1,150 feet away would not have been able to hear any of the shots. Alex claimed to be inside the house at that time. Through cross-examination by the prosecution, the calculations of the trajectory by the expert did not account for any of the bullets passing through any objects that could have altered the bullet's trajectory. For example, passing through a body or glass.
Have you had any formal training in pathology?
No.
Have you had any formal training in firearms how they work?
No.
Are you a member of any organizations that do that line of work, that do tests on firearms or pathology?
No.
Have you taken any shooting incident reconstruction classes?
No.
Do you have any certifications in shooting incident and reconstruction?
No.
Have you taken any classes in gunshot wounds?
No.
The prosecutor basically dumbed it down to Sutton being an expert in bullet trajectory so long as the bullet goes straight. That wraps up day 21 of the Murdaugh trial. Subscribe for more.